Possession. Sandra's nightmares had become unbearable. Every time she closed her eyes, she was transported into the past, witnessing the horrors the Queen had endured. The betrayal, the pain, the flames. Each vision was more vivid than the last, making it impossible for her to ignore. It felt as though she was not just seeing these things, she was living them. One night she found herself in the middle of a vast burning field. The screams of the Queen echoed all around her. A crowd had gathered, their faces twisted in rage and fear. They chanted words Sandra couldn't understand, but their hatred was clear. In the center of it all stood a woman in tattered robes, her long dark hair covering part of her face. Her hands were bound, and her feet barely touched the ground as she was tied to a wooden stake. "No!" Sandra screamed, reaching out, but she was frozen in place. The flames roared to life, licking at the Queen's body, but she did not cry out. Instead, she turned her head slowly, locking eyes with Sandra. A chilling smile spread across her lips. "You will make them pay," the Queen whispered, though her mouth did not move. Sandra woke up gasping for air. Her hands trembled, her skin damp with sweat. But something was wrong. The whisper was still there, inside her head. A sharp pain shot through her temples, and she clutched her head, groaning. "Sandra, are you okay?" Rose's voice was full of worry as she entered the room. Sandra wanted to answer, to tell her grandmother she was fine, but the words that left her mouth were not her own. They were in a language she didn't recognize, deep and guttural. The moment she spoke them, the lights flickered violently, and the air grew thick with an unseen force. Rose's eyes widened. "Dear God, what is happening to you?" Sandra couldn't respond. Her body jerked uncontrollably, and she felt herself slipping. Her hands twitched, her fingers bending in unnatural ways. Her reflection in the mirror across the room twisted, the image of herself warping into something inhuman. The Queen's eyes stared back at her from the glass. She was losing control. The next morning, Sandra felt weak. Her mind was foggy, as though she had been trapped in a nightmare for hours. She could barely remember what happened the night before, but Rose's pale, fearful face told her it wasn't a dream. "We need help, child," Rose said, gripping Sandra's hand tightly. "This darkness is growing inside you. I can feel it." Sandra nodded slowly. She didn't want to believe it, but deep inside, she knew her grandmother was right. The Queen was inside her now, whispering, waiting. She needed to do something before it was too late. There was only one place she could go. The church was cold, the scent of burning candles filling the air. Sandra hesitated at the entrance, her heart pounding. A strange uneasiness settled in her stomach. It was as if an invisible force was pressing against her, urging her to turn back. Rose squeezed her arm. "Stay strong, child." Taking a deep breath, Sandra stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air around her shifted. The flames of the candles flickered violently, and the massive cross hanging above the altar groaned as though it were about to fall. A priest, Father Nathaniel, looked up from his prayers, his expression darkening the moment he saw Sandra. "You should not be here," he said, his voice firm. Sandra swallowed hard. "Please, I need help. Something is inside me." The priest's gaze lingered on her, his fingers tightening around the rosary in his hands. He motioned for her to follow. "Come with me, quickly." They entered a small back room filled with old books and sacred relics. Father Nathaniel gestured for her to sit as he studied her. "Tell me everything," he said. Sandra hesitated, but Rose spoke for her, explaining the nightmares, the strange words, and the way the air seemed to shift around Sandra when she lost control. When she finished, the priest let out a slow breath. "This is no ordinary spirit," he murmured. "You are dealing with something ancient and powerful." Sandra shuddered. "Can you help me?" Father Nathaniel stood and reached for a book from the shelf, flipping through its worn pages. "Possession is not always immediate. Spirits like these, they seep into you, piece by piece, until you are no longer yourself. If we do not act soon, you will be lost." Sandra's stomach twisted. "Lost? What do you mean?" The priest's expression darkened. You will no longer be Sandra. You will be her, the queen, and once she takes full control, she will not let go. A chill crawled down Sandra's spine. She already felt her slipping in, through her dreams, through the whispers, and worst of all, a part of her didn't want to fight it. The queen's power was intoxicating, a deep and endless well of fury and strength. A sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, and the room's temperature plummeted. The candles flickered wildly, and a deep, guttural laugh filled the air. Sandra clutched her head. "She's here!" The priest hurried to grab a bottle of holy water. "We must act now." But before he could move, Sandra's body convulsed violently, her back arching unnaturally. Her eyes rolled back, and when they opened again, they weren't hers. They were the queen's, dark, filled with centuries of anger. "You think you can cast me out?" The queen's voice slithered from Sandra's mouth, thick with venom. "This body belongs to me now." The priest didn't hesitate. He began chanting in Latin, throwing holy water towards Sandra. But the moment the drops touched her skin, the room trembled as if an earthquake had struck. Books flew from the shelves, the windows shattered, and the very walls groaned under the pressure of an unseen force. Sandra let out an ear-piercing scream. The queen fought back, her laughter morphing into rage. But Father Nathaniel did not stop. He continued his prayer, his voice unwavering despite the chaos around him. And then suddenly silence. Sandra collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. Her body ached, her mind felt like it had been torn apart. The priest knelt beside her, pressing his hand to her forehead. "She's weakened," he said, "but not gone." Sandra looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear. "What do I do now?" The priest's expression was grim. "You must be ready, child. This was only the beginning. The queen will not rest until she has what she wants, and she will not stop until she has full control of you." Sandra's heart pounded. The queen was inside her, waiting, watching, and she knew deep down that the worst was yet to come. The final night. Sandra and Oliver stood in the dim candlelight. The dusty pages of the ancient book spread before them. The words were old, written in a language almost forgotten, but Oliver had spent the last few hours deciphering the ritual. The only way to stop the Queen of the Night was to perform the banishment, but it came with a terrible cost. Sandra's body trembled. The Queen's whispers clawed at her mind, filling her with dark thoughts. She could feel the Queen taking control, pulling her deeper into the shadows. Her eyes flickered black for seconds at a time, her voice sometimes not her own. The Queen was winning. "We have to do this now," Oliver said, gripping Sandra's shoulders. "If we wait any longer, she'll take over completely." Sandra nodded, but fear clutched her chest. "What if I don't survive?" Oliver's expression darkened. "I won't let that happen." Sandra swallowed hard. The ritual required a sacrifice. If they failed, she would be lost forever, her soul consumed by the Queen. The old house groaned around them. Rose's spirit had been restless ever since the Queen returned, but now something had changed. The air thickened with an unnatural cold. The candles flickered wildly, though there was no wind. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the walls. "You think you can stop me?" Sandra gasped, her body convulsing. The Queen's power surged through her, twisting her limbs, forcing her to her knees. Oliver grabbed her before she collapsed completely. "Sandra, fight her," he begged. Sandra's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't hers. A cold, eerie laugh escaped her throat. When she lifted her head, her eyes were black pits of darkness. The Queen had taken over. Oliver backed away, his heart pounding. "Sandra, please don't let her win." The possessed Sandra rose, her movements unnatural, as if invisible strings controlled her body. "She's gone," the Queen's voice whispered. "And soon you will be too." Oliver clenched his fists. He had no choice. He had to perform the ritual now, even if it meant hurting Sandra. He grabbed the chalk and started drawing the circle on the wooden floor. The ancient symbols had to be perfect. One mistake, and the Queen would remain forever. Sandra, no, the Queen, tilted her head. You think your little tricks will work? I have lived for centuries. I have consumed countless souls. Oliver ignored her, his hands shaking as he completed the final mark. He reached for the ritual dagger, its blade reflecting the candlelight. The Queen snarled, lunging at him with inhuman speed. Oliver barely dodged, rolling across the floor. She was strong, too strong. If he didn't act fast, she would kill him before he could finish the ritual. From the shadows, a voice whispered, "Oliver, you must do it now." It was Rose. Her spirit flickered at the edge of the room, her form barely visible. She had been watching, waiting. Her presence gave Oliver strength. "Hold her back!" Oliver shouted. Rose's spirit surged forward, wrapping around Sandra's possessed body. The Queen shrieked, her control flickering for just a moment. Oliver took his chance. He plunged the dagger into his palm, letting his blood drip into the center of the circle. "I call upon the Old Ones, the keepers of the veil. Banish this darkness. Seal the Queen away forever." Sandra screamed. The blackness in her eyes pulsed violently, the Queen fighting to stay. "You cannot do this!" the Queen roared. Oliver continued, his voice steady. "By the power of light, by the spirit of the lost, return to the void." A sudden wind howled through the room. The symbols on the floor glowed, burning with golden light. The Queen shrieked, her hold on Sandra weakening. Sandra's body convulsed, her mouth opening in a silent scream. The darkness inside her twisted and writhed, trying to escape. The Queen's form flickered, half inside Sandra, half being pulled into the circle. "No!" the Queen bellowed. "I will not go back." Oliver pressed his hand to the ground, pouring every ounce of his will into the ritual. The light grew brighter, filling every shadow in the room. With one final, deafening scream, the Queen was ripped from Sandra's body. Her form, now a swirling mass of black mist, was sucked into the glowing symbols on the floor. The light exploded, and then silence. Sandra collapsed, her body lifeless. Oliver crawled to her, his vision blurred with tears. "Sandra, wake up, please!" She didn't move. "No, no, no!" Oliver shook her gently, then pressed his ear to her chest. Nothing. A sob escaped him. He had saved her from the Queen, but at what cost? She was gone. Rose's spirit knelt beside him, sorrow in her ghostly eyes. She gave everything to fight back. She was strong. Oliver clenched his fists. There has to be a way to bring her back. Rose hesitated. Perhaps. She placed her hands over Sandra's chest, her spirit glowing softly. "There is one last thing I can do, but it will cost me everything." Oliver watched in horror as Rose's form began to fade. She was giving up her own spirit to save Sandra. "No, Rose, don't," Oliver pleaded. But it was too late. Rose's light seeped into Sandra's body, disappearing completely. The house grew still. Then Sandra gasped. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion washing over her face. "Oliver!" Tears streamed down his cheeks. "Sandra, you're back!" She sat up slowly, looking around. "The Queen, is she gone?" Oliver whispered. "Forever." Sandra exhaled, relief filling her. But when she looked around the room, she frowned. "Where's my grandmother?" Oliver's throat tightened. She saved you." Sandra's eyes welled with tears. "She's really gone?" Oliver nodded. "She gave her spirit to bring you back." Sandra buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly. Oliver wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly. The house was quiet now, truly empty. The Queen of the Night was defeated, but at a great cost. Sandra wiped her tears, determination in her eyes. "We have to honor her. We have to make sure no one ever suffers like this again." Oliver nodded. "We will." Together, they stepped outside. The first rays of dawn touched the sky, painting it with soft hues of orange and pink. It was over, but they would never forget the final night.